Hello, my name's Jose. If you're new around this channel, please consider subscribing. My goal with this channel is to be able to provide sim racers with as much information as possible. Starting off with this video, I'm going to be going through all of the essential controls that I run for iRacing. So this is everything that I've got on my wheel and my button box. So I spent the last about 4 years working with a retailer and manufacturer of racing simulators. So I got to spend a lot of time around different hardware and testing a lot of different software as well. So it kind of put me in a position where I was able to play around with a lot of buttons and a lot of configurations until I figured out what I wanted and what was the best for me. So I'm gonna jump into iRacing and we'll get started. Once we get into the iRacing garage, so we're gonna go into options. Once we're in options, we're gonna work on this menu here and starting off with the enter, exit, and tow car button. So this button here, this is what's going to get you in and out of the car. It's going to take you back to pit lane if you crash, and it's basically your reset button. Below that, you're gonna see the look left and look right. So if you've got something like an analog joystick on your wheel, this is great for people that, or if you're running a single screen, or if you're running an ultra wide screen like this and you wanna be able to look to the left and the right with this analog joystick, you can do that. And then right below that is the look up and look down. This isn't something that I've used or really seen used, but it's something that it's there if you wanna use it. Next, we're gonna go into options, and don't get that confused with the original options we went into. This is gonna be options for some of the operation of the simulator. And we're gonna start off with the split time delta menu. This has the next and previous split delta display. So those are defaulted to tab and shift tab. You can put that on a button box as well, and what that's gonna allow you to do, it's gonna be able to scroll through the different deltas. Below that, you're gonna see the toggle display reference car. So this is just a matter of being able to toggle the ghost car on and off. The ghost car is not something that I like to use. It's kind of distracting. Some people use it for training, so if you wanna use it, it's there. And moving over to the right-hand side of the screen, we've got the pit commands and chat commands. So these are pretty much macros that you can use to toggle different chat commands. So instead of having to grab the keyboard and mouse to type a chat, you can just push a hotkey to send a chat. Or coming down to the pit commands, if you've got several different commands for certain types of, or I should say, certain amounts of fuel to go into the car, and also tire commands. So those hotkeys here, those can be set for that. Moving over to the MISC section, or the miscellaneous section, here you have the video capture and screenshot capture. So if you're somebody that does any kind of media, that'll be helpful for you. And then over on the right-hand side of that menu, you have the LFE and bass shaker audio menu. So this is something interesting because at least when I started, I ended up having to use different software to use for my butt kickers. But now with this menu, you can run it all through here. You can assign the device directly through here, and you can also tune it directly through here. If you ever need help with any of that, remember that you can visit velocityprosims.com/support request, and we can take care of you. We can get that all set up for you. I'm gonna skip over the graphic and replay menus since there isn't a great deal of controls to set up, so we're gonna move over into sound. Over into sound, we have the louder and quieter options. I've got this on a knob here as well, so that I can turn the sim up and down depending on situation. This next menu is going to be control, and we got through pretty much all the other stuff rather quickly. This next one, you're gonna see it's gonna be a lot. And I'm doing this with the Mercedes W12, since there's a lot that you can map for that car. You're gonna be able to see all of the controls that we're able to map. Starting with the second clutch, this is something that was pretty new to me, but when I started running with these hydraulic pedals, the clutch is quite heavy. So depending on the car, whether it's the F3 or the Ferrari, this clutch is a lot easier to pull instead of having to slam my foot into the clutch if I spin out, or if I need to catch the clutch so that the car doesn't turn off. Second upshift and second downshift are actually quite useful. I remember quite a while ago in my Fanatic V2 wheel, the shifters absolutely stopped working. So whether you have it as a shifter or you have paddles, that actually works really well as a backup. Below that, we have the ignition and starter. And this was something that honestly put the biggest smile on my face when I started iRacing. I had the original Thrustmaster Ferrari Formula One wheel, and it had the little 3 toggle switches. And I remember it was just ignition and starter, and it was just a cool kind of ASMR feeling of being able to toggle a starter while sitting in a video game. Below that is the pit speed limiter. You can use this automatically. You can toggle it to turn on automatically. But you know, for the immersion factor, it's nice to be able to turn on the pit limiter. And when you've got certain configurations, you can have, like I have here, this pit limiter light will turn on, and I have a whole bunch of other LEDs that'll turn on. So it's really, I guess, for immersion. Really and truly, if you have the automatic pit speed limiter, you might gain a little bit of time in the pit just because it's instant. So keep that in mind. Next up is headlight flash. So if you're running a multi-class session, you're probably going to see a lot of headlight flashing, and this is going to be mostly from faster cars trying to navigate traffic. This is also something that some drivers tend to use a little bit way too much. So keep that in mind. Be nice on track and don't be blasting people with headlight flashes. Next up is for people that are running IndyCar, and this is the push to pass or overtake. I also believe this is now available in the new Super Formula car, so you have push to pass on that car as well. This next one is specific to the Formula One car and the Formula Renault 3.5. Usually when I put somebody in the sim and they're running the Formula One car, the first question they ask is, where's the DRS button? So yes, there is a DRS button that can be mapped. Next up is the tear off visor, and this is for when you're running an open wheel car. You're gonna notice that the visor is gonna get dirty, just like it would in real life. You can set this up to be automatic, but I think it takes a little bit way too long to clear. So when I'm running the F3 or when I was running the Radical, I would have that on a toggle switch to be able to clear it as quickly as I wanted. It just made it clearer and it made it easier to keep driving. Next up is the trigger windshield wiper. And unfortunately, we still don't have rain in the sim, but I learned to use this when I was doing rallycross. So if you're running rallycross, the windshield gets pretty disgusting with all the dirt on track. So having that on a toggle was really helpful. This next section is all about the in-car adjustments. Starting off with the brake bias. So you can have this on a button box, or in my case, I ended up putting it on the wheel. I put it on the wheel just because it was easier to dial in one click at a time, whereas on the button box, sometimes the knob can become a little bit too sensitive. So brake bias set, that's your main brake bias. Below that, you have your brake bias fine set. For the Formula One car, you're gonna notice that you can affect the whole number and the after the decimal, whereas in like something like the Ferrari or a GT3 car, you can only affect the full brake bias value. The F1 car gives you a lot more control. So again, brake bias, that's your main number, and then the brake bias fine, that's gonna be after the decimal. Below that, you see the peak brake bias for the Formula One car. This is going to be brake migration. I'll put a little blurb on here on the bottom of what brake migration does, because it's kind of a complex explanation, but I'll leave it there so you can read it. Below that, you're gonna see the brake misc set, or they have it here as brake miscellaneous. And this, if you remember Lewis Hamilton at Baku quite a while ago when he left the brake magic on, that's what that is. I guess they couldn't use brake magic as the name, but that button, what it does, it's going to send all of the, or most of the brake bias forward. So if you're on a formation lap and you're trying to get a lot of heat into the tires, instead of having to ramp up brake pressure, you can automatically toggle it on to think it was like something like 75% of the brakes are toward the front, which end up helping you get a lot more heat into the tires during a formation lap. Next up is for the IndyCar guys, and this is going to be your front and rear anti-roll bar. So if you're in an open setup race, I know a lot of people that end up using that to be able to tune the car during the middle of the race. So make sure you have that set up. Next up is traction control and ABS, and a lot of the GT3 cars run this. So if you want to really extract the most out of those cars, being able to have traction control and ABS mapped to buttons is going to give you a lot of control. Next up is dash page set. And a lot of cars like the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, they all have different DDUs, so digital display units, and they all have different dashboard pages in there. So having that mapped, that's going to give you the ability to change the different dashboards for different situations. Next is specific to the Formula One car, and that's starting off with the diff entry, middle, and exit. So that's your 3 different differentials. And then right below that is your engine braking. So the differentials, you're going to be able to use that in all the different phases of the corner. So the entry phase, middle, and exit, there's a lot of control there. If you're trying to extract the most out of that car, getting comfortable with that, you're going to see a big difference in the rotation, and you're going to see a big difference in how the car handles the corner. And then over on engine braking, once you've done everything that you can with the brake pedal, if you need to fine tune how the car is slowing down, you can then use the engine braking set to do that. Next is the MGUK deploy, and this, you have 4 different settings on the car. So you've got the balanced, qualifying, overtake, and there's one more that I can't really remember right now, but anyway, the MGUK deploy mode, that's going to be what the hybrid system is doing on the Formula One car and on the LMP1 cars. So make sure you have that mapped so that you can really extract the most power out of the car. Finishing off the left-hand side of the control section, we've got the traction control toggle. So this I end up using anytime I spin the car out and I need to whip it back around. I end up using that to be able to quickly disable traction and get the tires to help me spin back around. This is a lot easier than having to either change the traction control here manually. It's a lot faster to just quickly disable traction control. So something else you can use that for is if you're trying to do burnouts to get heat into the rear tires, you can just hold that while you do your burnout and then release it when you're done to re-enable your traction control. Now over onto the other control section, we're going to start off with the increase field of view, decrease field of view, shift horizon up and down, and we've got the increase driver and decrease driver. I've got these on a button box, so on toggle switches that go up and down, and what this allows me to do is change the field of view, change the horizon, and then change the driver height. So anytime I get somebody in here, this is something that I tell them all about, and so that they can get comfortable with it. And this is what allows you to get the most comfortable view in the sim for you. Next up are more of tools that I think are essential for the sim, and this starts off with the speed gear and pedal display. So if you don't have a dashboard, or you don't have a way to see the dashboard, or the field of view that you chose doesn't allow you to see the dashboard, well, with the speed gear display, you can toggle that on, you can move it anywhere on screen, and then that way you can see your gear, you can see your inputs, and you can see your speed. Next is toggle telemetry logging. So I have that on a button, and with that you can toggle on data logging for the sim. So if you're grabbing data for anything, if you're doing any training sessions, then you can use that to make sure your data is on. Next is the toggle virtual mirror. And this was something that I started using when I was running the Formula 3 in VR. I have it on a button, and Usually I turn it off when I'm in a qualifying session. Now that I'm on a single screen, I use it, and I end up toggling it off in a qualifying session just because it's distracting. But then once I'm in the race, it's actually quite helpful. I have the field of view for the mirror as wide open as possible. So in most cars, I can see everything I need to see with that virtual mirror. Next is toggle UI edit. And I mentioned earlier that you can move the speed gear display anywhere. So the toggle UI edit, you can toggle that on. You can put it on a button if you'd like. You can toggle that on. You're gonna see that all of the elements on the screen are gonna have a blue outline around them. That's going to allow you to move them around, and then just click that button or click the Alt-K default to be able to lock them in place. Next is the active reset start point. So what this will do is allow you to toggle a point on track where then you can use the active reset run button to run that section over and over. So before, if you wanted to practice a section, you would have to run that lap over and over and wait until you made it back around the lap. Now, with that save start point, you can toggle that on, and then when you hit the reset run, you can run that corner over and over as many times as you want. Below that is the custom sector mark start and end point. That's a mouthful. But what that allows you to do is it's going to show you the delta for that specific section that you would set up for the active reset. You can then tell if you're running faster or slower. If you've spent any time around iRacing, or if you've even seen on YouTube videos of iRacing a small black box on the bottom, so that's what this next section is all about. I have a whole bunch of different black boxes that I run through, so I'm going to go through them here. Starting here with the lap timing black box. What this does, it gives me most of the general information of the race, so how much time is left, standings, and like how many incidents I have in the race. Next is the relative black box, and this is a really important black box so that you can manage the gap to the car behind and manage the gap to the car in front. So if you're on track with a whole bunch of other cars, that black box will allow you to see the gap to the 3 cars behind and 3 cars in front. Next is the fuel black box, and here you can make any fuel adjustments, and below that is the tire black box so that you can make any tire adjustments. The next control in that list is the in-car adjustments. And what I'm currently using that for is the LMP3. For whatever reason, the dash doesn't have a brake bias value, and I'm running that car in VR. So I can pull that on a button here to be able to just see what the brake bias value is. Now, that same menu across different cars, you're gonna see a lot more information on stuff like the Formula 1 car. You'll be able to manage all of the hybrid settings through there. You'll be able to manage the brake settings through there as well. So keep that in mind, that throughout different cars, the in-car adjustment black box is going to change. Next is the mirror adjustment black box. And in here, yes, you can do all of your mirror adjustments. So whether it's the virtual mirror, the rear view mirror on the car, or the side mirrors. And here as well, for whatever reason, they put the force feedback settings in here, and you can actually tune your force feedback while you're driving. I'm gonna do a whole video on how to do that, but if you've got something like a funky switch, these next, 5 buttons here, so select next control, select previous, increment and decrement selected controls, and toggle selected controls. So mapping that to something like a funky switch, that's gonna give you a lot of control through that menu. And then again, I'll show you how to do it, but you can essentially tune your force feedback while you're driving. This last one is for those of you that run in VR. It's the recenter HMD. So if you've ever run VR, you may notice that the VR is going to go off center, and having that on a button so that you can quickly bring it back to center is going to be really helpful. Remember that if you need support at all for your simulator, we offer it at velocityprosims.com/support request. We're always here. We're always here to answer any questions. And hopefully we can help you maximize your sim racing experience. Remember, please try and subscribe. Please click like on the video so that we can try and push this as much as possible and get to as many sim racers as we can. Have a good one.